Welcome to the EcoRatings Eventing podcast. As we build up to CHIO Aachen Digital Champion of Champions, we wanted to look back on last year's Aachen. So we have dug out of the vault the Aachen 2019 preview show, and we thought we would re-release it for your listening pleasure. Did we get it right? Probably not. But listen back, see what we thought would happen before the Aachen 2019 action unfolded, and we hope you enjoy this very special show of the EcoRatings Eventing podcast. If you haven't already, then we hope that you will get involved in the Eventing Manager game in the lead up to Aachen. Pick your dream team. You can download Eventing Manager for free in your App Store or on Google Play. Pick your 4 combinations from your virtual $10 million budget, and you could be in with a chance of winning tickets to Aachen 2021. There's loads of great prizes on offer from a number of different brands. All of those are available to see in the featured league section on the app as well. So do go and take a look, because you could be in with a chance of winning some great prizes. For now, though, I will leave you with the Aachen 2019 preview show. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the EcoRatings Eventing podcast. Welcome to the EcoRatings Eventing podcast and a brand new episode, because we have a huge week in the sport of eventing this week. It is Aachen coming up. They've got the SAP Cup competition for teams. And of course, it is traditionally one of the most competitive 4-star short classes of the entire season. So we're going to preview all of the action, both the team competition and the individual competition. And I'm very happy because I have my 2 favourite Irishmen back with me. Sam, it's been a long time since we've been in a pod together, I feel.
It's been a while, Nicole, but what a podcast we've got in store. This is it's the pinnacle of the short format competition, I think, in the sport. We have the best of the best, and I cannot wait to go through them.
So alongside us, I saw you this weekend. Dan, we are reunited, and it's going to be a big week because you're heading out to Aachen.
I am bags packed, Nicole. Got my little Hill Bob t-shirt folded up, ready to go. I actually don't have a t-shirt this year, but I'm very excited. Let's just think about this for a minute. 3 of my favorite eventers with their brilliant horses are going there to take each other on. Collett,
they are
taking on Krajewski, taking on Klimke. And I don't even think they're the 3 favorites in the competition. Maybe 2 of them are. But, I mean, for me, it's going to be quite a week.
It's going to be a big week. Shall we just go straight in and look at Aachen? Because historically, the home nation have dominated. So in the last 12 years, Germany have won it 9 times, including the last 5 renewals of the event. So they're really, really dominant here. Only New Zealand and Australia have won it. So Andrew Nicholson and Rareo won it in 2010 in the lead up to the World Equestrian Games. And Chris Burton, that man Chris Burton, won it in 2012 and 2013 with Holstein Park Leilani and Under Discussion. So they are the only people that have ever managed to break the German domination of the event. There's 3 riders actually here this weekend who have all won it twice. Ingrid Klimke, Michael Young and Christopher Burton. So they're all bidding for a record 3rd win in the competition. And we're going to talk a little bit more detail about how good this field is, because it is just top name after top name after top name. We'll talk about many of the Germans, but there's a few other nations, including Chris Burton, coming forward with 2 very, very good chances. But just a little stat for you. Listeners, listen to this. In the last 12 months, this field have won 113 internationals between them. That's crazy.
It's a mind-blowingly good field. The 2 prizes, world number 1 Tim Price, Janelle Price, who won 2 5-stars last year. All of the names that you've mentioned that have won it, the 3 dual winners in Chris Burton, Ingrid Klimke, Michael Young, but everyone who's on form. Last year's winner, Julia Krajewski, she's here. There's so many different angles. It's a warm up for the European Championships, but I think that this is going to be in the top 3 eventing competitions that we see this year unfolding. It is absolutely the creme de la creme. I don't know if that's how they would say it in France, but that is how I'm saying it. It's an unbelievable field.
Before we start talking about a few of those key contenders in a little bit more detail, let's look at what it takes to win. Sam, what are we looking for here in Aachen this weekend? What stands out?
Well, I mean, anyone who goes to Aachen Riser knows that it tests the best as well. It is not an easy place to make the time, and nor it's not an easy place to score well in any phase. It really is a proper test, and yet the average finishing score this decade, when you convert to the scoring system that we're using today, is 25.2, which is such a low score. That's the average winning score. So really, that's what you're working with. I mean, usually we're talking about a 28, but here at Aachen, even in the tough scoring conditions that we know we're going to see, you're still talking about trying to get down to that 25 mark. That is the level of the standard, and that will instantly rule out probably about half the field at least. I mean, we do have good horses and riders here, but getting to that level, starting on that level, on that kind of a score, is very, very difficult.
That's a really good point, actually, Sam, because from the field that are lining up, the Echo Ratings numbers have it that 23 combinations will actually start sub 30. So they will start with an over 70% dressage. I mean, that is just insane in itself. So that is the first phase. The other thing I think everybody needs to look out for is no winner of this class has ever knocked a pole in the show jumping. So they have to leave the poles up in the show jumping. They cannot afford to add penalties there. And that is going to be something we really are going to be looking out for. Generally speaking, at Aachen, 1 in every 3 jump clear in that second phase. So let's watch this space in the show jumping. You mentioned as well that the cross-country time is tight. Only 3% made it last year. That is how tough it was. So that is kind of what it takes to win in Aachen. Let's talk about a few of those big names, the big German challengers first, because let's face it, they've won it 9 times in the last 12 years. They've got 3 of the hot favourites here this weekend. I'd be very surprised if they didn't win it. In fact, they've got a very good chance of taking a podium whitewash, in my opinion, to be fair. The Echo Ratings Eventing Prediction Centre actually have the top 3 all as Germans. But who's out in front? I think your T-shirt might need to be packed last minute.
I mean, what's interesting about this bit, Nicole, is there's not a whole lot between the front two. Ingrid and SAP, Hale-Bob, Julia and Samurai Dutho. 25.
Right,
yeah, I'm doing my best, Nicole. Ingrid, I'll just call them Ingrid and Julia. It saves with THs. THs are always tricky. Ingrid 25% and Julia 23%. So, you're already, what's that? You're already approaching 50%. Just between the front two. And as you mentioned, then the chances on kind of win percentages at the moment from what the SAP technology is showing us is that add Michael into that on Fisher Chipmunk. Might I add, this was before Fisher Chipmunk went and smashed up Jardy in the show jumping phase. So that will likely drop a little bit when the Jardy result gets calculated into there. You mentioned never knocking a pole, and I think that's probably a concern now for that combination going in here. But your front two, Nicole, very, very clearly Klimka versus Krajewski. And if you were doing the pre-competition predictions, and if you're doing the pre-competition ads, there's where you're going to be focusing your attention, like the big battle that we've had so many times recently between Ingrid and Julia. And I'm sure we're going to come on to them. What's really important is that it's still only a 50-50 chance that it is one of those. So if we're looking at individual combinations, yes, on a podcast like this, we're going to focus on the top 2. But even at all, there is still 50% chance that it isn't one of those. And I think that's where it gets really interesting. We'll come and talk about the 2 of them. But if you look anywhere down the field, the reason that it's only 50% for those 2 is you've got so much talent all across the field. How often do you see Christopher Burton on 3%, Tim Price, world number 1, riding Wesco on 3%. We talk about the Event Rider Masters having so much quality. These are all Event Rider Masters winners that we're talking about here. Michael Young, Star Connection, 3%. Quality Purdy for Christopher Burton, on a track that we've just talked about as being a big speed track, on a track where we know the dressage for people like Laura Collett, Tim Lipson, Byro, Piggy French, they can all deliver those big tests. But because they're all up against each other, because there can only be one winner, you see them all beginning to really contribute 3%, 4%, 3%. They're all quite low. Now, the big two are the big two Germans, and that's primarily, I would suggest, because we've seen the really, really low dressage tests from those two. And if they can get ahead, they're both able to go inside the time, and they're both able to jump clear, and you might not be able to get past them. But it's probably, I would say, a little bit more, it's probably a little bit in, so 25% just ahead Ingrid Klimke. I would say that is probably it was definitely taken into account the Wiesbaden dressage test. Now, using your intuition, Sam, I'm going to come to you on this. Was it a 16 dressage test? Was it 4 marks ahead of Julia? I know that you're not positive on it, but the data won't be able to, the machine doesn't have the intuition around that. It will be reading that 16 was a 16.
I mean, the scores across the board that day were a couple of marks lower than where people have been averaging. So some of our algorithms will take that into account. But just with where Ingrid was placed in the draw, even the judges that were there, I think that's an important one. It's something we're not, again, wouldn't be in this prediction model. The fact that, Nick Burton was there, and he really uses the scale, which a lot of people like, the fact that he will really reward a good test. But I think if she produced that same level and that same quality of performance, I'm not sure if she'd get a 16. Again, it's an incredibly low mark. But what is the interesting angle for me is the third person in our ranked in our prediction center is Michael Young. Completes the Germans at a 1, 2, 3 in terms of the hot favorites, both on paper and I think on most people's list. But I can't help look at those top 3 and want to pick holes in them. Again, maybe this is just how we program ourselves as human beings. The computer puts it up there. They take up about 60% of the win market, so it's a 60% chance that our winner does come from those 3. But Ingrid and Julia on these 2 horses actually had problems on the cross country last year. Michael Young and Fischer Chickmont, they looked an absolutely brilliant partnership in Stragom when they won a 4-star short there. That was their first win together, their first international win together. They look fantastic, but this will be the big test for Michael and Fischer Chickmont. It's their first season together, and the Aachen cross country does test them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those 3 picking up cross country penalties.
Chipmunk is the defending Aachen champion, though, Julia Krajewski. But I think that for me, the thing that actually stands out with him is his show jumping, because we said a little bit earlier on in the podcast, you've got to jump clear to win here. Now, funny story from Shardy at the weekend. Durr mentioned that he had a few poles in the show jumping. Well, our studio was at the top of a fairly steep hill, and all I heard, I was just minding my own business, wandering back from like the orangery bit, and all I heard was Fischer Chipmunk and 16.8. And I was like, oh my God. I went running off up the hill to tell Dee that he'd scored a 16.8. I was beside myself. And then Derm turned around and told me that they were actually show jumping penalties, which nearly matched his dressage, which was a 20 point something. So they've got to put that behind them. That's a big dent for them.
Yeah, I think we're going to see incredible dressage. The most important thing, I know we're going to try and dissect this and see who we think can win it. The thing I am most looking forward to is not just seeing who wins this. I just cannot wait to watch the performances from so many of these combinations. This is going to be the highest quality that you can see in the sport unfolding in front of you, and it is like Christmas here in terms of what we get to see. So in the first phase, from these 3 German combinations, we're going to see incredibly low scores. Fischer Chickmunk in his last 4 runs with Julia Krajewski last year went sub 20 on 3 occasions, 3 19s. Yeah. Samurai Deto and SAP Hailbob have all been sub 20 this season. Have both been sub 20 this season. So we could easily see teen dressage here. We could see a world record.
Dressage record, wouldn't it?
We could see Aachen dressage records. We could see world records in the first phase, and then it gets really exciting. I think they are, we've talked about the importance of the show jumping. SAP Hailbob and Fisher Chipmunk in particular will need to really pick their feet up in the show jumping and produce their best.
That's one phase actually that Samurai Juto doesn't have as much to prove in. He's normally a very reliable show jumper. Obviously, Julia has been in incredible form this year. Now, the one thing I would mention, Samurai Juto is the reigning German national champion. He's won Chatsworth, he's won Verigam last year, he won Buccolo. Like, he is in incredible form. He is on a winning streak. But for me, the only sort of proviso I'd put out there is he's been to Aachen twice before and has previously not completed. So it needs to be third time lucky for them. Other horses like Hailbob and Chipmunk obviously have course form, but Samurai Juto hasn't delivered at the venue. So that for me is a question mark. But I actually think Julia is the one to beat ahead of Hailbob and ahead of Michael Young, Fisher Chipmunk. Actually, Sam, it's worth mentioning because we're talking about Fisher Chipmunk, but there's one horse that he's riding that actually has beaten a lot that's probably going a bit more under the radar than he should be.
The Star Connection, we don't see him out all that often, but when he does come out, he's highly effective and highly effective in competitive fields.
And he beat Hailbob in Wiesbaden when winning the Event Rider Masters there.
I think on that occasion, Hailbob beat himself. It wasn't his best day in the show jumping, and it was uncharacteristic, very uncharacteristic. But he could. There are vulnerabilities, which is what we've been saying. But for Michael Young to be double-handed, he's not someone that you need to give two bites of the cherry to, and he's got them here. Star Connection has won competitive fields, Jardy 2017. Then we didn't see him in 2018. He's looked in good form this year, and Wiesbaden, a 22.2 in the dressage. As I say, scoring a little bit was a little bit low that day, but still, that he's very capable of going in around the 25 mark, and he could finish on it. So he's absolutely got the ammunition to produce an Aachen level winning performance. And if others aren't on their game, he will be one of the first there in line to pick up the pieces.
I'm actually going to say that out of the two Michael Young horses, I think Star Connection is the one that will be on the podium this weekend.
I think that's a good shout. You mentioned,
because I think he's a very good jumper, and I think he was very, very, very impressive in Wiesbaden.
Still improving as well.
You're right there, Dan. You're having a little chuckle to yourself.
Yeah, I'm having a little chuckle just because I was just thinking about your face running up the hill. And would you still be saying that if you thought Chipmunk had done a 16.8 dressage?
No, I wouldn't. But he didn't. He had 4 down and a couple of time penalties.
Well, he had 4. Yeah, he did. But he's also the defending champ, so put some respect on his name.
Nicole, I have a nice link. I have a nice link for you here.
You
mentioned Samurai Juto as the Buccolo winner, and Buccolo really is, again, it's up there certainly in the top 10 events, internationals that take place every year. The 1, 2, 3 from Buccolo last year, and they all produced seriously low scores to be the 1, 2, 3. They line up again and they take each other on in this field. And I will I don't know, you did have other things on your mind around that sort of time of year last year as you.
Do you know what? I actually thought to myself, because I had Toby on the Tuesday of Buccolo week, and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to be able to sit and watch Buccolo because I'll have a new baby. And I watched the top 3 show jump, and that was it. And for anybody that knows me, that is shock horror. But yeah, wasn't quite there lying in bed with a new baby in this warm, bubbly glow that I thought it might be. But anyway, that was naivety at its best. Anyway, let's talk about the Brits.
Because the top 3, exactly. One of them is London 52 and Laura Collett.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the SAP Cup competition. So countries can put teams in as well. So it's not part of the Nations Cup. It is a separate team competition. And actually, there are some seriously good teams. So if we just say that the other horse in the German team would be Andreas Stabowski and FRH Corrida alongside Michael Young, Ingrid Klimke and Julia Krajewski. So they've got some good individuals as well, because they obviously get to send a few more combinations. But if we then go on to the Brits, Laura Collett, London 52, disappointment for them at Bramham when they were hot favourites to take the long format 4-star. They've got a bit to prove here on the back of that result, but let's be honest, they've been on very good form this year. Sam, do you think he'll take to Aachen? The big European Championship marker for them.
Yeah, I think there's it's a question for sure, just in terms of where the horse is in the career, but I wouldn't read into I wouldn't let the Bramham results worry me too much, and a few reasons behind that. I mean, firstly, Bramham produced statistically one of the most difficult cross country rounds at the kind of 4 or 5 star level that we've ever seen. It's right up there with Badminton 2014, which was the really wet year. So a really, really difficult day of cross country at Bramham this year. And that then is also going to have Laura very well prepared. You know, a lot of these, when a professional is coming off a 20, it's very different to maybe someone with less experience coming off a 20, where you think, oh, this could be the start of a downward patch of form. Sometimes that's just exactly the wake-up call they needed. They're back training, doing their exercises, doing their tricky lines, and they're absolutely 100% on it. And it actually, if you rewind the clock to when Mr. Bass of Laura Collins was at that sort of stage in his career, 2017, had a 20 at Bramham, and in the next time they went cross country in an international was at Bergam, and they won, and they beat Cooley Masterclass, and on ratings it's one of the most impressive performances that Mr. Bass has ever delivered. So she's well able to bounce back with one of her up and coming top horses from a setback like that, and I'm quite excited to see them. I wouldn't want to heap loads of pressure on. Aachen is an absolute cauldron. You got to treat it like a championship. It basically is a championship, and it'll be a test, but I think they could well produce something very, very big here.
Other British riders in the team, Piggy French, Quarry Crest Echo. If Jenny was on this podcast, she would be screaming Team Red, because they come here as their first international run since being 4th in Kentucky in the spring. So they, I think, would have, again, a big performance in them. And actually, Quarry Crest Echo, I'm going to say, has been to Aachen before. Am I right in saying that?
You are right in saying that. Yeah, they were 9th.
So they've got form at the
2017.
venue. 2017, that was it. So the year just before they went on to the European Championships in Stragon.
Yeah.
And interestingly, only 1 second over the time cross country on that run. So yeah, I think they should put in a strong performance. They're the most experienced in terms of Piggy being the most experienced in terms of championships kind of form. Imogen Murray, Ivor Gooden have a lot of 5-star experience for the British team. They were best of the Brits there last year, and we're going to hear from Imogen on the podcast as well. Gemma Tatzel, Jalapeno. Now, that's quite an interesting one, because they were second at Bramham, but this was a new partnership this year, and it was a horse formerly ridden by Karen Donkers, still owned by Chris and Lisa Stone. But Gemma's taken the mare on, seems to be getting a really good tune out of her.
Yeah, and she's, I think, looking for a horse to come through and become her sort of next generation of top horses, and I would say that this is the next progression. This is going to be a big way to answering that question. But yeah, they've had a couple of runs together. They're not a long established partnership.
They are long listed for the Europeans though as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and I would say it's an interesting team for me. When I saw Quarry Crest Echo going around Kentucky this year, I think it was kind of a little uncharacteristically green for him. He had a slip early on and maybe lost his confidence a little bit. But I thought that left a few more questions for me rather than answers. I definitely wanted to see him compete again. And this is the place to do it. This is a proper test. The same with London 52, the same with Jalapeno. I think this is a real, the British team there's potential Tokyo horses here. And I think they're being sent here to show
test the
Dickie
mettle
Waygood and Chris Bartle what they've got.
Yeah. And the fifth British rider who will be an individual, Selena Mills and Iron, who actually were third at Bramham behind Jalapeno this year as well. So that is the British team. The Australians, obviously they've won it twice before in Aachen with Chris Burton. We'll come on to him in just a second. I'm going to let you talk about your favourite horse, or one of your favourite horses. Do you think he's going to top the podium in Tokyo 2020? Andrew Hoy's Vasily de Lassos, who really actually shot to the top of a lot of people's radar in Aachen 12 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, to get him to top that Tokyo podium, which is my big plan for Vasily, is going to require the dressage to come down. And I think that is really all I want to see at Aachen. Surface, cauldron, atmosphere, against the best in the world, pressure on. Now is going to be the time that we have to see Vasily begin to come. I think it was a little bit early maybe at WEG. It was obviously a brilliant finish for him at WEG, but it was a little bit early in terms of their partnership. Well, I mean, they've only probably been together for maybe 6 runs, I think. WEG was their 7th international together. Andrew having taken on the ride in 2017. So we've had tests ranging probably from 35 down to, I think their lowest was that WEG test, 29.8, but they haven't been lower than 29.8. That is
at top level.
Yeah, everything about this pair is the second 2 phases. They just don't pick up jumping penalties in either of those phases. So this is really the horse that is the king of the FODs. But FOD on a 31.5 is not going to be good enough at Aachen, which is unfortunate.
Can I just put up something on his jumping? You say it's all about those phases. From 16 completed internationals in the horse's career, he has only ever rolled 1 pole in the show jumping, and he's only ever been 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds over the time in all of those runs. That includes Aachen previously, it includes the World Equestrian Games, it includes the German National Championships, it includes Le Lion d'Angers Young Horse 6 and 7-year-old championships. I mean, that is just absolutely remarkable.
I think this is so special. So special. We should mention Tom in terms of Tom Carlile, in terms of the journey before Andrew had Vasily, but I think they are just such an incredibly special partnership. Look, Andrew Hoy is able to deliver incredible dressage tests, and we've seen it across such a wide range of his horses. I think, is he on the list? Is he on? No, I don't think he is. Yeah, Cheeky Kalimbo, back in 2013, did a 21.7 here at Aachen, and is in the top 10 dressage performances we've seen at the venue. You can pretty much pick any event in the world and you'll find Andrew Hoy somewhere in that first phase in terms of the records. I've no doubt that he's going to be able to train a dressage test into this horse. And now, by the way, I'm talking about a horse that's doing 30 dressage, 28, 29, 30, 31.
But if he can start producing 26, 27, but he's pretty much guaranteed to finish on them every time, he's almost unbeatable.
Well, I think that's where it gets really interesting. So if there's a dressage test you want to tune into, for me, if there's a dressage test that we could make interesting over the next year, I think it is the Andrew Hoy Vasily dressage test. Because because every single marginal gain that we know Andrew has the skill to make with Vasily de Lassos is essentially going to be a mark of his finishing score with the way the horse's form currently looks. So he's a year to do it, but he's only got a number of big competitions where you really get those top dressage judges in really big atmospheres on a surface against the best in the world. And this is one of them. This is a marker that we will talk about when we're doing the Tokyo preview next year. And we're saying, well, is Vasily de Lassos good enough to win? Do you remember Aachen last year? Because he's going to have to either come down from that dressage test or he's going to have to replicate that dressage test. But if there's one dressage test I'm really interested in, this is it. I want to see something kind of that starts with a 2. And if it can get into the 20s, I think we can begin to start the improvement process, which gets us to a 25 for Tokyo, which finishes on a 25, which finishes on the top of the podium, and we can all edit this and play it
and clip it up.
Yeah, clip it up.
The one thing that, as well, moving on from Aachen, that interests me with this horse is he's actually got to go and get a long format Olympic qualification at the back end of this year. Now, I don't think Andrew will take him to Burghley or Poe. I think he will stick at 4-star long. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to Blenheim, or even, you never know, somewhere like Mill Street or something in August. Watch this space. Okay, other Australians. Oh, God, do you know what? Forget about the other Australians for a second. There's only one that we
What?
No. One that we really want to talk about right now. Chris Burton.
Yeah.
He's won it twice before.
I'm not sure
I think that
Kevin
is
McNabb
particularly
feels about that.
Or
No,
Isabel
well,
English. I mean, I think
no.
Isabel English is sitting there being like, that's a bit
Just forget them,
challenging.
dude.
Just forget about them for a
them.
sec. Hang on a moment. There's
only one
a
Nicole wants to talk
reason.
about.
There's a reason that we're going to talk about Chris Burton as this. He's won it twice previously. He's going for a third win in the class, but he comes double-handed with a horse that was second here 12 months ago in Quality Purdy, who was very close to beating Chipmunk, and with Polystar, who comes off the back of the Semur win, has won Event Rider Masters legs as well. So he comes here with not one but two very, very good chances.
Yeah, 100%. You've just talked about possibly one of the fastest horses in the world in Vasily de Lassos, and from the same country, you have the fastest man in the world in Christopher Burton. His trips to Aachen this decade started back in 2011. He had the Great Holstein Park Leilani, did an okay test, but had a show jump down. So he just hacked around for just 6.8 time penalties, probably the slowest Chris Burton's ever been in his life, 17 seconds over the time. Since then, he has been cross-country around Aachen 6 times on 6 occasions. On a total of those 6 rounds, he's only been 1 second over. So he's made the time 5 of those 6 times. And on the other occasion, he was 1 second over.
That's crazy.
So, look, he's perfected the art and the skill. I think, Quality Purdy for sure has got the gears to produce what's required around this
Very
track.
nearly
did it
had
last year.
An Event Rider Masters win last time out, but a pesky mim clip.
Exactly. I mean, finished on 26.7 here last year, just beaten by Fisher Chipmunk and Julia Krajewski, and but for me, I mean, the only person to finish on their dressage score last year, and they've got it. And Polystar, he's just so effective because you look at Polystar and you think maybe he won't be the fastest, but how many times do you say that about Chris Burton horses? He's just able to be so smooth and efficient, and again, it's kind of a bit of a treat. Like, we talk about potential record-breaking scores in the first phase. What you're going to see is, I think you will see a handful of people make the time around Aachen, and not because the time is achievable, but because you have horses like Vasily de Lassos, Samurai de Tho, SAP Hailbob. You have Chris Burton on these horses. You've got Wesco and Tim Price. I mean, I don't want to spoil getting to the other ones, but there are a lot of horses here and a lot of riders that are going to be magic around here. And actually, Quarry Crest Echo and Piggy French, when they made the time at Chatsworth in the Event Rider Masters last year, that's one of our top speed rating results. Again, they don't look the fastest when they're going around, but it's not actually all about ground covering speed. It's sometimes about not going slowly. And these horses are so efficient through their turns, thanks to their riders, obviously. So I'm looking forward to seeing these guys at work on cross country.
Can I just say on Polystar, the horse has actually won 3 of his last 5 internationals, was second in one of the others, and was third at Barbary Event Rider Masters last year as well. But their dressage, I mean, they've been as low as 21.4, 23.6 in Arville when they won last year, and their last 2 have both been 25. So for me, they're going to be close enough to those German challengers. If they can get into the early mid-20s, they're going to be in touch. And actually then they put the pressure on, because if they can jump a clear round, the horse has actually not had one pole down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 runs. One pole down in 9 runs. And he's fast. I just think, actually, wouldn't be surprised to see him put the pressure on those Germans. And the moment there's a few seconds or a bit of a mistake, Chris Burton will be waiting.
He'll pounce.
He'll pounce.
Speaking of
and
pouncing,
actually,
Nicole, can I give you another thing on that?
You can. Can I just say that I saw Polystar working in Jardy at the weekend, actually, because he's going, Chris Burton came to Jardy and then was going straight on to Aachen. So both Quality Purdy and Polystar were there, and he looked amazing. Like $1 million. Sorry, Dee, go on.
How did Polystar look?
Yeah, look good too.
No, it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work really for you to come back to me now, because what you were talking about was pouncing, and I was going to link that very neatly in a segue to that Isabel English mouse horse, Ferndale Mouse, because what we've actually got when you talk about the Aussie riders generally, we've talked about Vasily, we've talked about Chris Burton, but and we're about to talk about Isabel English very, very briefly, purely because if we can get those good dressage tests out of the Aussie riders, all of their horses are in the top-rated show jumpers in the field. Now, if we wanted to try and pick a hole in Germany, well, Chipmunk, had a day to forget at Jardy, shall we say. SAP Elbob had a day to forget at Wiesbaden in the very recent past. Samurai Duto has, that'll be no problem at all. But from a team point of view, I think no, that's not a curse. That's not a curse. Samurai Duto is no problem.
Hashtag curse of Derm.
But
they've had poles in 3 stars.
No,
this is a 4-star.
Samurai Duto is unbelievable.
No horse is bomb-proof. This is sport. This is anything can happen in there in the
Samurai Duto is bomb-proof. But what I would say to you is, what could be interesting is if we can get a couple of those low dressage tests from, let's say, Vasily does it, Quality Purdy, Polystar, Ferndale Mouse. I think you might see Feldale Mouse. I think you might see the Australian team very, very close to the Germans going into the final phase of cross country here, possibly even leading going into cross country.
Really?
Well, wow. I just think that they won't be too far off in the first phase. And
sure, Vasily will be he'll be miles off, won't he?
You need to give over. Vasily won't be too far off the pace at all.
Honestly,
you've never done.
He needs to go. He needs to go sub 30. As in,
for this quality of field, he will. For this quality of field, if he doesn't go sub 30,
I don't think he
won't be in the top. He won't be in the top 30 horses after the first phase. That's the reality of what's going to happen.
And he's not trending that way at all. And I think they'll put him early. I think they'll probably send him out number 1 because he's such a pathfinder by nature. Give Berto the end draw. So I think Vasily, I think he'll be a low 30. But I'm still waiting for your segue pounce. Keep going.
It was so good, wasn't it?
This is going.
It was so good.
What's the pounce bit?
What was the pounce?
Did you not get it? Sure. Well,
Australia are going to pounce on Germany.
A mouse.
Mouse.
Oh,
yeah. I was moving from Burton into Isabel English.
I don't.
But then Nicole,
mice don't pounce.
Could I just talk about what?
It's tiger. Mice don't pounce.
Let me get pounced on, sure, by cats. What's wrong with you?
I have no idea how we're talking about one of the best events of the year, and we've disappeared into pouncing on Chris Burton.
We wouldn't have
get pounced on.
We wouldn't have found ourselves in this rabbit hole if you just let me do the segue, and everyone would have been like, very clever. But because of this,
no one would have got that.
All right,
okay,
Nicole, take it back.
Oh God, let's move on to New Zealand. So Team New Zealand have Tim Price and Wesco, who won in Arveil on their last international outing. Fairy Dynamo, Janelle Price, who were actually second behind Tim on that occasion. Dan Jocelyn, Blackthorn Cruz, and Jesse Campbell, Cleveland in their team. James Avery, Mr. Sneezy are their individuals. So obviously the Price duo are leading the way there, but Jesse and Dan both very solid. And Cleveland can actually put in a really good dressage test as well. So the New Zealand team, didn't they win last year? I'm sure the New Zealand team won last year.
They did well last year. They did, yeah, because there was upsets. Yeah, Germany fell apart. Yeah, I love that. It sounds like you sort of wrapped up the New Zealand there, so we'll move on from them. Just kidding. I mean, the the Mr. and Mrs. Price on German soil. I mean, they have now won the Lamulin 5-star on 3 occasions. So Tim and Wesco and Janelle and Ferry Dianimo, like their 2 5-star winners, are here. These are their big guns, and they'll be laid out for this. And they're both highly, highly effective horses. This for me is where you see Wesco at his peak. I know he is a 5-star winner. I know he was runner up as well in Kentucky, but for me, he's naturally more of a 4-star short horse than a 5-star long horse. I would rate him as one of the fastest in the world in a 4-star short.
And he made that look in our veal. He just
Yeah.
cantered around. He was class.
Poetry, exactly, absolute poetry. So, and low scoring. I love watching Janelle and Ferry Dianimo because bit of a, it's probably unfair to say a box of chocolates, but she's a really explosive mare. Like if you watch Ferry Dianimo in the kind of all week in the collecting, you know, in the warm up and the build up to it, you think, God, anything could happen here. And yet time and again, Janelle will pull it out of the bag and deliver her absolute best when she needs it. And I suppose that's why she is such a pro and as good as she is, but she's two hot Mias, as they say here, and yeah, anything could happen.
I actually, Ferry Dynamo in our veal when they were second, I think that it didn't take Janelle by surprise. That would be unfair to say, but it was the horse's first international for sort of a year. And I think it was, you know, they performed as well as they could have done on that occasion, and they ended up finishing second on the podium. If she improves from that run, and I think she will do because I think she needed it, I'll be really excited to see what they can do here.
It goes one of
the show jumping.
Yeah, it goes one of two ways. I think when they're fiery temperament, as they get older, they either start to settle down and become more relaxed, or they just get even more excited because they anticipate it even more and they understand the whole thing even more, and it goes the other way. But I would say the signs from Marveal is that Ferry Dianimo could actually be kind of getting more and more settled as she goes on and becoming more reliable and understand her job, which would make her a huge threat here and make the New Zealand team a real threat, because Dan Jocelyn put in a huge performance at Tattersalls this year. And that looked a class performance. Blackthorn Cruise was second there. And the Kiwis could do with, you know, a couple of other people putting their hands up. I'm putting in a big performance. So, and Jesse Campbell as well, talented rider and just needs his, you know, just needs somewhere like this to register.
Have a break.
Yeah, a big proper result. But he's put his work in. You know, he's been knocking at the door for a while. It's not all gone his way every time, but you can see that he's capable of producing, like, not just a good steady performance. Like if it all clicks, it could be a huge performance. So these guys, the Kiwis, come here with a real life chance.
Well, can they defend that team title? What other countries have we got to talk about? The United States of America are sending 3 combinations.
Double Z.
Double Z, yeah. Philip Dutton and Z, who, I mean, he's just been a stalwart of the US team for so long. And Z was disappointing, I think, particularly in the show jumping in Kentucky, because he went there was their best chance of a win, but is still very much, you know, one of their best horses in the country. So I'm excited to see him on European soil. And the other one, actually, that I think we shouldn't overlook individually would be Liz Halliday Sharp and De Niro Z, because they were on great form this spring and actually led after dressage and show jumping at Barbary in the 4-star before withdrawing cross country because they're saving themselves for here. So I think Liz has something to prove here a little bit. And of course, she goes as travelling reserve to the Pan Am Games a little bit later on this month as well. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, I think the, you know, US eventing wants a bit of a lift. I'm not sure if this will be the track for them. I think the Pan Am Games is going to be their turning point. I think they're going to put in a big performance there. Z, I can't see him making the time around here. I know people are going to disagree with me because they thought in WEG that was kind of tactics, and I know he made the time around Kentucky, but it was just Philip was working. He had to work around that track to get him around there. And Aachen is so much more intense. It's so much more condensed. You can't really, if you're having to work around Aachen, your time is slipping away from you. So that could be tough. But God, on their day,
I
top
actually think
combination.
they've got a little bit to do in the dressage as well. They're
Few
capable
more
of scoring sort of 27, 28, but I think they just probably, if they're going to challenge the very top of the leaderboard, they need to just bring that score down a little bit.
But another two potential Tokyo combinations here. The two that you mentioned. So a big weekend for them. I think all US eyes will be firmly on them, and you would love to see them deliver, because it just sets the scene.
And on De Niro's, actually, we spoke to Liz Halliday-Sharp a little bit earlier on this year, pre-Kentucky, on the podcast. And if you want to go back and listen to that, you can do, eventingpodcast.com. But, the horses' flying changes still haven't quite ever been nailed in competition. Now, if they do get them, which they can do, then that all of a sudden will throw their score after the first phase down by 2 or 3 marks at the very least, probably a bit more. So that could just all of a sudden see them explode into a sort of higher territory than we would perhaps otherwise have been expecting. So yeah, looking forward to seeing them this weekend. It should be good as we head towards Tokyo.
Liz has never been to Aachen from what I can see here. I think what will be interesting, again, we mentioned it with a little bit with Vasily, and I think it's probably going to come up on a number of a show like this, show like the Europeans preview, a show like the Buccolo preview, where there are only a limited number of events at this level of the sport that we are going to have between now and Tokyo 2020. And it feels like a long run. It feels like a long way away. But when you're working with teams, when you're looking at high performance programs, and you realize that actually there is probably only, I would say, 3 or 4 more points in the road between now and Tokyo where all eyes around the world are on all of these horses together. And I think this is one. And this will be another big test for De Niro Z. They obviously had that big disappointment, very much on an upward curve going into Kentucky. Big disappointment, and I think now we're back. Another big chance here, and it'll be a big weekend for Liz.
And came back with a win at Breitling, actually, in the international there.
Okay, I give you that, but Breitling, not Aachen.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just saying that they've put that Kentucky disappointment behind them. They've been back out internationally. They're ready to go to Aachen to be competitive. That's all I was saying.
Oh God, yeah. No, they'll be ready.
They're not
they'll
going
be ready
straight.
to deliver here. Yeah. No,
absolutely. Okay, it would be remiss of us not to talk about the French. So let's look at those for a second. Jean-Luc Bigot, Utrillo du Hillage, Alexis Gury, Tremble de l'Île. I always get this horse's name in a complete pickle in my head.
I'm so glad that there's one that trips you up, because you're exceptional on these names.
Tremble Demery, I believe. Christopher Six, Totem Brassy, Nicolas Touzon, Absolute Gold, and Julien Guillot, Elvis. But Nicolas Touzon, who actually we saw in the Event Rider Masters this last weekend in Jardy, 2003 European champion. I feel like he's due another big break back at top level heading into championships. So I'm excited to see them. Alexis Gury, with the horse whose name I'm not going to try and say again, have been top 10, I think, at the German national championships, I think it was, but have also been top 10 at 5-star. So a very experienced, and I would imagine are very much in the eyes of the selectors heading towards the Le Moulin Europeans too. So it's a really good field.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Nicolas Touzon with Absolute Gold, only a 9-year-old. And what's interesting about Absolute Gold and Utrillo du Hillage, Jean-Luc Bigot's horse, they were 2nd and 6th at Saumur. They were the only 2 horses in the field to be faster, wait for it, don't die of a heart attack, than Chris Burton and Polystar on that occasion. So, again, you talk about people, capable of putting in an electrifying performance around the Aachen cross country course. Those two have got some form in the book. But yeah, Absolute Goal for me is the one I'm intrigued to see. And again, but you're looking ahead to Olympic Games next year potentially.
Yeah, Absolute Gold as well. Both of those qualified for the Europeans and for the Olympics already. And they were clear inside the time at Harada last year in the Nations Cup. So, yeah, the French, you always feel a little bit with the French that you can't discount them because they tend to go about their business quite quietly. And if you'd have...
They're reigning Olympic gold champions, Nicole.
Yeah, but do you know what? Going into that Olympics, they went about their business very quietly. And then they all went to Chatsworth in the Event Rider Masters, did really well. Then they all kind of just settled down, did what they needed to do, and then came out at the Olympics and were like, boom. And actually going into the World Games last year, they weren't necessarily people's picks for a podium finish. And yet they took team bronze and secured Olympic qualification. So you just always can never write them off, particularly with riders of Jean-Loup Bigot and Nicolas Touzon in the team. Let's be honest.
They're pouncers.
Pouncers.
They go to a camp.
A pouncing camp. What happens
No.
at pouncing camp?
Not a pouncing camp. They go to a camp to train. That's what they do.
Oh.
They get taken away. It's like the army. They get taken out and no one's allowed to talk to them. No outside contact, no nothing. And they do their business. Then they get let out, unleashed on the world.
Okay. Totem de Bressy, Christopher Six, also in that team, were third in Saumur. So they've picked a lot of horses with good Saumur form to come out back at Aachen.
Saumur's really died down a little bit. It used to be a big... the Australians used to love going there. Well, sure, Chris Burton.
One still does.
Yeah, he's been doing well there. A lot of Australian wins in Saumur, actually. But I went there. Andrew Nicholson used to always have a truckload of horses there, but it's become very French. I mean, it is in France. But I suppose
Saumur has become very French. Take that little bit of wisdom away from this podcast.
What was Toddy's horse that did well at Saumur?
McLaren.
Oh yeah,
McLaren.
2 years ago. Yeah. 2 years ago. There's two other combinations who they aren't submitting a team. So Sweden and the Netherlands. So Tim Lips and Biro, who were that top three in Buccolo last year, are the only representatives of the Netherlands.
This horse is fourth favorite on our ratings.
Yeah,
huge.
I thought we'd never get here. I can't believe we had to talk for so long. What were you doing, Nicole, making us wait all this time?
We were talking about the teams in the SAP Cup.
I know, but we've been through such mental combinations before we got to Tim Lips. Like, this is a horse that if anyone actually slips up, he's much more likely to win. This is a really big one.
Really? Go on, why is he a big one? Go for it.
Because she's just so super, you know?
Is that Tim Lips?
I don't know. I was trying to be Dutch. Yeah, Tim listens to the podcast, actually. Better be nice about it.
He might not be anymore if that was your impression.
He's been racking up ranking points in case the Dutch don't qualify as a team for the Olympic Games at the European Championships this year. This man wants to make sure he's got enough points. He won the 4-star long in Sopot back in May. He won the 4-star short in Stragom back in April. So he's in great form.
Look at the scores, though. Look at the first place scores. It's a big one.
Yeah, we talk about sub 25 to win this. You know, this horse's last four scores 23, 25.4, 24.2 and 19.2 from Buccolo.
Yeah, but then he does that 28.7 at Varsveld in a 2-star.
Now 3-star.
And that's kind of an outlier because go back before that and he's doing a 23.3, 24.1.
Where did he do that 23.3, D?
Knickers. He did it at Aachen this time last year. So basically, from 6 runs from last year's Aachen to this year's, and he's only one test, which is above 25. Byro's going to be...
And one of them was 19.2. He led Buccolo.
Yeah, he's going to be right in there. Now, he did have a 20 penalties here, didn't he? Retired.
He did.
on
He's
course.
had 2 20 penalties. As far as I can see, he's only been to Aachen twice previously, and he's had 2 20 penalties.
Oh my
And he
God. How
retired
much?
after one last year.
So it could be a potential, right? That him and Samurai Deto are right up there at the top.
Yeah. And worth
And
noting
SAP
for those.
Heilbob.
Well, you see, what I think could happen, pal, imagine it all played out like this. So you get Fisher Chipmunk, SAP Hailbob, Biro, and Samurai Deto. They all do a sub 25. That's what the machine currently is telling me anyway. They all do a sub 25. But imagine SAP Hailbob and Fisher Chipmunk knock some poles. That would
See that
leave.
happening. Yeah.
Could happen, right? It's not beyond the realms of possibility on recent form. That would leave Biro and Samurai Deto at the top going into cross country because they're both, should be pretty good jumpers. Biro maybe one, but Samurai will have none, guaranteed. But then you have the challenge. Samurai Deto has never completed here, and this fella's never jumped clear here. They will both be freaking themselves out. Imagine they were 1 and 2.
And in swoops.
In swoops.
In the most dramatic style.
Pounces. He's going to pounce. He's not going to swoop.
Pounce.
The little pouncer himself, Cathal Daniels and Eclipto.
Oh my God.
For Ireland.
That wouldn't be a pounce. You have to be kind of close to pounce. That would be a massive stretch. No, it would be Chris Burton surely who would come in from there, wouldn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I can definitely see a non-German winner here. I mean, because you have Chris Burton double-handed, Tim Price. I think Piggy French. I wouldn't write her. I can see her FODing here. So it's just a question of how low she can get Red's dressage. I don't think she'll quite get to 25 level, but 25.
But if you pick that many people, of course. I mean, just to say a non-German, of course.
Well, the Germans take up 66, at least 66% of
no.
That
Fisher Chipmunk one, the Fisher Chipmunk one will drop down after the weekend, no doubt about it.
It's only 11% at the moment.
He's on 11%. I tell you, look, pal. I tell you what. If you look at all of those combinations, which are between 2% and 4%, they actually come out with about 28% of the win market there.
Yeah.
So you're starting with Laura Collett, London 52, going down to Andreas Dabowski and FRH Carida. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 10 combinations.
Everyone, you can find this on equiratings.com.
Right, 10 combinations there.
You can all look at this.
That's 28%. That's more than any individual win chance.
And don't worry, listeners, I'm not listening to them either.
Right.
Lad, this is important.
It is important. You make a good point.
This is really important. Of course, it could be a non-German winner. It's more likely than not.
Yeah, but
it's not more likely.
No, you say that, but 9 of the last 12 runnings in Aachen have been a German winner. The last 5 renewals have been a German winner. Only 3 times has any other country ever managed to win here.
The model says it's about, I think we might have broken down, but the model says about a 65% chance a German winner and 35% not. And I would be taking on the model, even though we've written all the algorithms. I think you can see that Aachen is where the vulnerabilities, like it just sees a 4-star short.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think this is where some of them.
And you can pick holes in a few of these combinations forms. Have we lost you, Derm, or are you sulking in a corner, or are you being pounced on?
Kind of got ambushed by us then. It is a lot more peaceful without him.
It's quite nice, actually. Should we just carry on?
I think we should just carry on.
Okay, well, just want to talk about 2 other horses. One of them, I think, will persuade Derm to come back because he loves talking about this person. But the first of them is actually Pavel Spizak and Banderas for Poland, who have secured Olympic qualification already. They actually won Babaroko long format 4-star in the spring. But listen to this. So they beat, on that occasion, Fisher Chipmunk and Michael Young into second. Now, Pavel actually scored a 26.8 and finished on it. Fisher Chipmunk scored a 26.8 and added a few time penalties cross country. So he was thereabouts with him in the first phase. So I really like this combination, and I think they should be very, very solid performers. They also won Sopot already this spring as well. So they're more than capable of scoring. In fact, look at this. Their last 3 internationals this spring have been 26.9, 26.8, 26.3. So if they're scoring 26 again here, then look out for them. The other
It's great to see. It's great to see a Polish combination. I mean, we said this last year when they started getting some big results in the lead up to WEG, but I mean, they're a notch on. They're another 4 penalties really below consistently, from where they were last year, and it is good to see the diversity in terms of nationalities and flags. And Paul's been around for a long time, and he's had a number of good horses. But Banderas, I think, certainly, as you say, well worthy, deserves his mention in amongst these lot.
And actually, Poland have secured Team Olympic qualification because they did so in Barbaroko this year. So they've got their Olympic qualification under their belt, and this combination will be no doubt the starting point for that team. So looking forward to seeing them. Now, there's one horse now that, if Derm is still here, if he is still in the building, which we don't know about at this point, he will come back in because it is Louise Reimacher, who was formerly Louise Svensson-Jada, got married recently, and she comes forward with Wheelock's Utah Sun, who is one of her most experienced horses in the field.
Yes, Nicole, if there is one person that would make me come back, it is going to be Louise Svensson-Jada. And I refuse to call her by her married name because I don't recognize that she's married. In my head, there is still a chance for me and Louise. Yeah, Louise Svensson-Jada here. What I think is quite interesting is I think I probably would have overlooked this combination previously. In terms of look, if I'm really honest, I don't think they can actually get near to the top 5 in Aachen. They are too slow cross country to be challenging at the very, very top end of this. But when I was prepping some of the data for this, they came up in my predicted top. I think they were about 27.5. They came up with in the dressage, and that on my numbers looks like it would be good enough to probably get into the top 10 after the first phase. I think it'll be in and around that mark. And then I was going through my show jumping notes, and they also came up as one of the top show jumpers in the field. It's been a very long time since they had a poll down. I think it's back Stragom Europeans they had a poll. But
they're 8 internationals in a row, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, they're very good show jumpers, and they've jumped clear here at Aachen as well in that time.
They've been top 10 in Aachen.
Yeah, they were 10 last
but
year.
They had 6 jumping time penalties. What happened there? Did something happen? Do I remember something happening in that round? 6.
So, right, time penalties have changed now. Only 0.4. That'd only be 2.4 now. Well, I mean, take your time, Louise. Take your time. Longer for James to look at you.
That makes me running around like such a creep. Yeah, she'll go clear inside the time. No, I think the time penalties rack up. The reason I mention Louise Svensson-Jada is I think we will probably see her reasonably close to the challenging group going into the cross country, and I think that's always interesting to note. I think maybe a little bit slow for the win, but I wouldn't be surprised with in around. If she could repeat that 2018 Aachen, I think it'd be a brilliant result for them.
Yep, I agree. I really like this horse actually, and I really like Louise. I thought she was class in Wiesbaden this year as well. So look out for them. Podium time, guys. We've got to announce our podiums.
Do it. It's too hard.
Go on, got to do it. Just do it. Make it up. Go for it. I don't know mine. I'm going to wing it as I always do. But I know what I'm opposing, I think. So go for it.
I'm going to oppose all the top ones here.
Why though? Why? Just explain why. That makes no sense.
Okay. It does. So SAP Hailbob is as I said before the Wiesbaden pod, he's vulnerable. He doesn't look himself 100, jumping phases more so than dressage. He'll obviously be up there. So posing him in the jumping phases, he's had 20 here at Aachen before. I think that was explainable, but not bomb proof. And anyone who's not bomb proof, Aachen is where things can unravel.
Can't
Samurai
wait to drop
Toe.
some bombs on your other ones, because no horse is bomb-proof, as I've been trying to explain
I
to you
know,
for
I know,
years
but
at this
this is
point.
why. But this is why I'm go. I look. If I had to
You
pick
told
one of
him
the
to
top three,
explain. He
it would be
explained.
Samurai. It would be Samurai Toe. I think it's. I think that's the one I shouldn't be leaving out, but I am going to leave him out, and I am going to take him on. I would love to see him when he's one of my favorite horses in terms of his little face and his ears pricked, and he loves his job, and he's cheeky, and he's talented, and he's cool, and he's cool horse. But what I'm going for is Tim Price and Wesco to win, Michael Young and Star Connection second, and Chris Burton and Quality Purdy third.
Ooh, interesting.
I'm gonna no Star Connection won't make. He'll get a couple of time penalties. So Chris Burton, Quality Purdy second, and Michael Young and Star Connection third, and Piggy French and Janelle Price just behind them in fourth and fifth.
Okay, go on, Dan.
Julia Krajewski wins this again.
Mm-hmm.
What a story, and what a cool thing it's going to be for her. The emotional turmoil that would no doubt see, she's lining up there with, yes, a teammate, but also a competitor, riding the horse that she won this on last year. And she actually goes and wins it again, and this time on the horse that had all the problems here last year. She's made an unbelievable start to the season. She's already got 8 international wins from 20 this season. I think only Piggy French with 10 has more, and Piggy French has more than twice the amount of runs. This girl is in form. She knows this track. She won it here last year. Samurai has twice as many runs at this level of the sport than any other horse in the field. That includes Polystar, Chipmunk, SAP, Hail Pop. They're all on 3. Samurai Duto is an unbelievable horse who doesn't get half the respect he deserves. Incredible win rates. He's averaging 25.1 in the first phase. No doubt for me. Julia
Okay, so
Krajewski,
Samurai wins.
Duto, winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, second.
And I mean, first is first. Second is nowhere for me. Pick whatever you want after that. No, I'm only cotton. Second, I think Ingrid and SAP Hellbob will actually push them to the line. I think they will jump clear this time, and I think Chris Burton will be on the podium with a fast round and can do everything else. Yeah,
Which
my
horse?
main one, that Polystar, beautiful horse. Yeah. I would also say keep the one that I'm actually going to stand back, video, look at, take a picture of. I want to see the dressage test from Vasily. That's the big one for me.
Big indicator. I'm going to agree with you, Dom. I think Julia Krajewski wins with Samurai Duto. I am going to oppose both Hail Bob and Chipmunk. I'm going to say that in second is Chris Burton and Polystar. And in third is Tim Lips and Biro. And I think Michael Young Star Connection will be fourth. So that is my podium.
What a field.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it? This is the kind of eventing that we absolutely love. Just bring it on. Bring it on. It's going to be brilliant. Derm, you're going. We are hoping that you might be able to do a couple of tour diaries for us as well.
Who do you want?
Let the listeners send their suggestions in. So listeners, if you want Derm to harass anybody in Aachen, if you'd like
not
to hear from anyone,
weird, or don't make me look weird, just like people that we know. Like I'm not. Don't make me. I'm not doing Ingrid. That's not going to happen because.
Or Louise Fansignada.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that makes me look like I have to approach people and be like,
"Hang on a
would
second,
you mind sitting in the corner here with me to record a podcast?" No.
Derm, you're worried about looking weird. Listeners, if you would have seen him in Jardy after broadcast on Saturday for the dressage, he decided that he only had some shorts with him, but he didn't have appropriate footwear or socks. So he takes his chinos off, nearly flashes a lot of French Federation people in the process, and puts on this skin tight pair of denim shorts with long socks and dress shoes.
Yeah, it wasn't a great look. But
it was a strong look.
Handsome is as handsome does. Is that what
I think you should. I think you should try and get. I think you should try and get Jesse Campbell and Sarah Ennis, just because it'd be funny trying to keep the two of them in shot. One's very tall and one's.
It's a podcast, though, pal. It's a podcast.
Oh, that's
actually,
true.
do you know who'd be with me?
Do you know who'd be with
me? I'd say the best commentator in the sport.
John Kyle. Thanks. Thanks,
That was only a little cod. Don't slag those denim shorts again. Yeah, JK will actually be with me, so I'll definitely get him on. Sure, he'd be delighted. He'd be
Right.
chatting away. You won't like that, will you,
Guys.
Knickers?
No. I'm open to John Kyle being on the show. He's been on before. He's great.
Yeah, he used to do stuff for us before. Anyway, he's back, so we're doing. I'll do pods with him.
Before we wrap up this episode, we have a very special guest, and we will pass over to a quick interview before the end of the show. Well, as a special treat on the Aachen preview, we wanted to get a guest on for you, and seeing as I was in charge of guests, I went for a Brit. Of course I did, because that's what I do. This young lady, 85 in the world, we are huge fans of her on the Eventing podcast, mostly of Ivor Gooden, because we all know my love affair with Ivor Gooden. Welcome to the Eventing podcast, Imogen Murray.
Hello, thank you.
We are so excited to have you on because we've spoken about you a lot. I know your owners are listeners as well. So it feels the right time, considering that this time last year you were actually best of the Brits in Aachen.
Yeah, Ivor Gooden's owners in particular absolutely love listening to the podcast, so they're going to be very excited that I'm actually going to be on it. And yeah, last year I went to Aachen with Ivor Gooden. It's the first time I've ever been there, and it's just such an amazing place. And it wasn't the best event for the Brits last year, but I ended up being best of the Brits, and it was a really good experience, and I'm just so excited to be back there this year to have another go.
What is it like? Because it's one of my bucket list events. I've never been, I've heard lots about it, and it just sounds absolutely incredible.
Yeah, there's no words to describe Aachen until you've actually been there. I mean, loads of people said to me last year that it's such an amazing place, and we had such a great time. We watched everything when we were there. I watched dressage, we watched some of the driving. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, but it was great. We watched the Nations Cup for the show jump in, and then we just had I've never been to a big championships, but for me, there's never been another event where you can experience all of those those different disciplines at such a high level, and it's just really interesting to be able to go and actually see a bit of everything. And the place itself is like absolutely unreal. Like the stadium there is like the best thing I've ever seen for anything to do with horses.
It sounds quite inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, we went and like even just like little things outside of the main entrance to the like business part of the stadium, they've got all the shoes of like some really famous horses in the pavement.
Cool.
Yeah,
like a walk of fame kind of thing.
Yeah, like a walk of fame, and it's got the names, and then it's got one of those shoes imprinted in the sort of pavement thing, and it's just like to stand there and read all of the horses there. Like it's just a really inspiring. It's quite a sort of scary thought to be like, I'm actually competing here, and it's just such an amazing thing to be where those horses and those sort of people have been, really.
Oh no, that sounds really cool. Will you take a picture for us of the shoes and the pavement? I love that. That's amazing. On podcast listeners, we will put that on social for you. Okay, so the British team this year is yourself, Laura Collett, London 52, Piggy French, Crowcrest Echo, who come off the back of that really good fourth place finish in Kentucky, Gemma Tattersall Jalapeno, who are runners up at Bramham, and just behind them at Bramham, Selena Milnes and Iron, who I actually really, really like the look of this horse. I've been following his career for a while since he went very well at Heartbreak in the One Star, I think it was a few years ago now. It's a good, solid team for the Brits.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really exciting team for the Brits. I mean, I know Laura's London 52 is absolutely stunning in like all three phases, and like the other guys have done really well. So I'm feeling like I'm gonna have to try and keep up with them, I think.
No, show them how it's done, particularly in the jumping phases, because we can talk a little bit about Ivor Gooden, because he is improving all the time in his dressage. And actually, last time out at Barbary, it wasn't quite a personal best at 4-star level, but it was pretty close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty close. He's getting a lot better in the dressage phase. For anyone that knows him, it's definitely his least favourite thing to do. He's not been ever particularly impressed about having to do dressage, but he's getting a lot better, and he's quite capable now. It's just sort of trying to keep him calm and keep him relaxed in that atmosphere is quite difficult. But I think he's getting better and better all the time, and it's really nice to be given the opportunity to go to somewhere like Aachen, because the only way we can sort of test things and see if they work is sort of being in that atmosphere, and we don't get exposed to that a lot of the time. So it's really like just grateful to be given the opportunity to sort of go and see if we can keep a lid on him in the dressage, and then hopefully do his fun bits in the jumping.
And he loves his jumping, doesn't he? He's done 5 stars now, which is hard to believe considering he's only 12 this time. But 5 stars, all of them clear cross country, has never been, I think his worst placing was 21st. And that was at his first 5-star, I think. Every other has been top 20 and 8th at badminton this spring, which I was delighted about because I put you up as a top 10 finish. So. No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, no, he absolutely lives for jumping. He just loves the crowd as well. He hates the crowd in the dressage, but he loves the crowd when he's jumping because he likes to show off. And yeah, he's been unreal for us. Like, we never thought that he would do. You know, we'd be happy if. Well, we'd be absolutely ecstatic if he did 1 5-star, and he's done 5 now, and he gets better and better every time. You know, he was, I think, 2 seconds over the time at badminton this year, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't make the time because he's definitely fast enough. But it's about me letting the handbrake off. So, but yeah, he's just, and he makes it feel so easy. I mean, I never thought that going around a course like those courses would ever feel like he makes it feel, and I just think every event on him I get to do, I enjoy more and more, and I think it's nice to be able to finally show sort of the rest of the world how good he is in those phases.
What's the plan with him after Aachen? I take it Burley will be on the cards?
Yeah, so the plan is to take him back to Burley and see if we can. I'm determined to make the time in a 5-star at some point in his career, because he's more than capable. I'm a bit Captain Slow, for anyone that knows me not on Charles. So it's sort
Don't
of
say that.
It's true. He's taught me how to go fast, and I'm getting there. But yeah, no, he's back to Burley. He's think he's going to have a little trip to France as well before Burley, just to
Haradapan for the Nations Cup.
Yeah, hopefully that's the plan. He really likes the event there, and it's quite a good pre-Burley cross country course for him there. So that would be the plan, and then fingers crossed for Burley.
Oh, well, we cannot wait to follow your progress. We will be rooting for you in Aachen this weekend. And if you can send us a few pictures, then we would be very grateful for them as well, because I'm particularly intrigued by the hoof prints in the pavement. I'm looking forward to those. Do they have names as well? Like they have a plaque of who they are and who rode them and stuff?
They have the horse's name underneath the shoe on all of them. So amazing. They had Sam. And who else do they have on there? Well, they had the really big show jumpers like Shutterfly and
cool
and things. And
well, we would love to see them. We really, really would. But we would love to wish you the very best of luck as well. I know you're going to have to go because you have got so much to do. You travel. So we're recording this Monday evening, but you travel out to Aachen tomorrow night. Are you traveling as a team or are you traveling separately?
I think we were all travelling separately, but sort of all around the same time, I would have thought. So we'd probably arrive, not together as such, but sort of together.
Around about the same time, yeah.
Yeah. And then, hopefully arrive in Aachen Wednesday afternoon.
Well, this podcast will be coming out on Wednesday morning. So for those of you listening, when it is out, then they should all be getting themselves settled in Aachen. Send us some pictures. We'll be cheering you on all the way, and good luck for Burley as well, because we'll be watching to see if you can make that time in a 5-star. In fact, that might be my eventing podcast prediction for the Burley preview show. Now I've got a little bit of inside info. We love putting a bit of extra pressure on people. Imogen, thank you very much, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, right. On that note, it has been an epic podcast because it is an epic field in Aachen this weekend. Enjoy it. Get in touch with us. Join the Flick group for all of the chat behind the scenes in Aachen, and let us know who you think will be on the podium. Do you think it will be German domination once again? Who knows? Tune in, watch this space and find out. In the meantime, we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast.